All systems go. Clear for liftoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, aka ToeTagginTambo, back for another edition of the PGA Show. We got the PGA into the playoffs now. We're rounding up the season. Special guest here with me, my man Alex Blickel from FTN. Got his own thing going on now, a little bit on the side too. We'll talk about what he's doing. Bring Alex in here in a second. But before we do, Alex, do you know what day today is? It is August 5th. And somebody said this is like Christmas Eve. It's like Shipmas Eve. So you guys know the teasers are coming today. We'll have you covered. But Alex, always good to be back with you, man. People always love the shows when we're breaking them down. I love the aspect that you've actually played golf before at a high level. Like just even recently, you're in some stuff trying to get after a U.S. Open and whatnot. But you're always busy in the golf streets, in the DFS streets. What's going on, my man? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. Can't wait to do the show with you again. It's been a while, but yeah, like you said, always enjoy doing stuff with you. And we've got the Pennsylvania Open coming up in a week, so right back at the golf streets as well.
Yeah, I love that. Like I always tell the story, but it was at the first ever, the inaugural, the DFS Open, and you were in the playoff, man. It was crazy. It was me and my boy Kenny Kim. We rolled out. We said, "What? You guys aren't going to watch this? I know it's just a mini event here, but I was like, we got to go see this." So we rolled up on the cart, checked it all out. You were a little bit off. Wild off the tee on the last hole. You managed to recover well and gave yourself a shot, but then I think Buddy just drained the putt. It was like a 12-footer or something, and you needed a lot longer than that to recover versus him, and it didn't quite happen. But you made a run at it. It was a close call, but very good golfer in your own right. So we'll talk about that. Let's talk a little bit about this. It is the FedEx St. Jude Championship. 69 golfers. Nice. No Rory. So we'll talk about that. But I guess that's the first segue in the talk of the town right now. So we'll just riff back and forth a little bit on this. But we talked a bit pre-show just about this playoff situation and get your 2 cents on. I know you've got some ideas. I've talked about it forever. Obviously, the current format is absolutely horrible, but they can never seem to change it in a way that ends up working out for them. And I do think, one thing we talked about pre-show for sure is true, is they still spend way too much time talking about the money, which nobody gives a shit. We know these golfers are rich. That's not what we're watching for, is to see how much money. We had the Phil versus Tiger match, remember? $9 million of fake money. Like it's real money, but it's like neither of them. $9 million doesn't move the needle. It's like $90 for Phil. It's like $9 million because he needs it. But for Tiger, it was like $9. And yeah, at the end of the day, nobody cared about that kind of money that it was. It was just to get a match on the go. So what's your thoughts on this playoff format? Because we've seen some interesting ones come out lately. I know we talked about it pre-show.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that I agree with is that we don't care about the money. And so the tour needs to let go of the idea that we're ever going to care about the FedEx Cup playoffs the way we care about major championships and stuff, right? Playoffs are about prestige. That's why we care about them in other sports. And so they need to get rid of that thought and then move into, okay, well, what still matters at that time of year? And to me, the big answer is who has status the next year, who is in the signature events the next year. So I think they should transition the playoffs to be more about those players. And so like right now, we've cut down to 70 already, and a lot of guys are now going to be competing for tour cards throughout the fall. You can have a lot of that drama right here in these few weeks. So that's the number one thing I do. And then of course there's a lot of drama as well that could go into just who's qualifying for signature events. And so I would basically have 2 simultaneous match play finals going on in the last week. And everything before that is just figuring out who's in which bracket, where one bracket is competing for the FedEx Cup Championship in the winner's bracket, and everyone else is competing for some level of status, where every single round in the match play unlocks new levels of exemptions, new levels of status, things like that. And I think that would be really compelling viewing going down the stretch. And you'd have multiple matches going on in the final, so it's a little bit better for TV as well.
Yeah, one thing I've always said, and this is like I put a big post out a couple of years ago about this. It's just like the PGA Tour is so bad at content. I mean, everyone will say, "Oh, I just saw today the ratings are up huge. Must be amazing." Sure, but people always confuse that too. Like a business can be doing really well, but could be doing a whole lot better. Mm-hmm. The PGA Tour's ratings are up right now. That's phenomenal and good stuff for all of us, but it could be a whole lot more. Like it's all what it comes down to on certain things. And bottom line, just ask 100 people around you. 90 of them don't even know what the FedEx Cup playoffs are or mean. And the 10 that do know don't care about them, to Alex's point of what he just said. And that's what it comes down to. They need to do a better job. Everyone said, oh, Scotty is boring. Fine, but he's the best in the world. And it's totally different. They're trying to compare him to Tiger Woods, who transcended the sport and the game and everything with it, with ratings, more people watching it, getting in the gym, getting in shape, building all these Scotty Schefflers up that are now able to hit these types of shots and just flush it completely and go out and crush. But they need to do a better job of building up their if you think of like creator content, it's like build up your people. Your creators are the golfers. Like build them up. Tell us the story. We don't know who half these guys are. And when we do hear the story, it's usually awesome, but it's usually just over quickly. Or like the commentator gets fed a couple of notes. Use this to tell the stories of these players. Anything they can do it like that. And then to Andrew's point, yeah, at least they got rid of the starting strokes. It's like they had to try and do something, but that was definitely not it. So hear you on that. Shout out to BG Little next as St. Jude Championship and preseason NFL. Hey, what do you got going on right now in the NFL streets? Getting fired up for that to come back? I know NFL is just around the corner. So before we hop into breaking this down, give me your thoughts on the NFL coming back and what you got going on there.
Yeah, I mean, it's so exciting this time of year. Both taking a look at week one for the DFS streets, but then also love best ball. And, I don't do a whole lot of fantasy football. So when I actually have fantasy football drafts, like with friends, with family, I'm just using our rankings at FTN Fantasy, the best rankings in the industry. So anyone out there who just wants fantasy football rankings and really, really good ones, check out ftnfantasy.com. You can use promo code BLICK for 10% off there.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. I'm going to pull some stuff up while I'm just grabbing this quickly, maybe talk a little bit about how you see this event playing out with, the course, what you know about it, where it's at. It's played the same place. I got to be here before. I know Mayo is there this week. There is no Mayo show with me this week. I won't be on it with him. So he's down in Memphis. I know that should be a good time. I've been there, got to be there the year Willie Z got the job done. That was incredible. Going into that playoff, I remember running around from hole to hole to get that thing out of the way, and him having the ball just sit up on the lip of the rock on that little island and figure it out and go back to the drop zone and then still figure it out. So tell me what you know and tell the people what you know about this course and just what your overall thoughts are on it to start things off here.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do not like this golf course. It's always more fun to talk about a great golf course and one that I think is just like really well designed. This is not that. And it shows up in the course fit model where every single aspect of golf, driving distance, driving accuracy, and that's using our proprietary strokes gain driving accuracy metric that we have at FTN, approach play, and putting are all less predictive here than usual. Around the green play is pretty much right on where it usually is. And that's not what you expect to find on a golf course with as much water as this. When you think of the other like water heavy courses, PGA National, TPC Sawgrass, the 3M Open, we get typically a really high signal on our strokes gain driving accuracy because course management becomes a big part of that. And then you also see the same on around the green play, because again, around the green play is a lot about course management, missing in the right spot, making sure you're not missing in water, but you're missing with green to work with, easy opportunities for up and downs, safe off of the tee. That's where we get that strokes gain driving accuracy signal a lot of the time. And we just don't get that here. And I think a big reason for that is most of the time, avoiding water is about skill. It's about managing your misses. And here, I think it's a little bit more about luck. And that is just, I think, a sign of a not very well-designed golf course.
Yeah, so I agree. And, you know more about that angle of it than I do. But when you're talking about applying that to DFS, I'll give you a quick example. I mean, I just did this a couple weeks ago when I talked about it at, what was the event? 3M Open is the best one for this. Like, it's hilarious. It's the week after a major. So I'm just, from what we always do on the show's DFS perspective, the week after a major, people are already lazy or have the hangover. Then you've got everybody thinking they know, like, oh, I'll just trust these guys. But the same people are speaking out of the other side of their mouth saying, but this course, high variance, lots of water. It's like, then why are you just jamming every dude like you know exactly who it's going to be? Like, you could just play into that. It was a complete massacre. I think it was like a 3 or 4%, 6-6 rate. So with what you just said, everything you talked about, what's the best way, or how are you going about applying that from a DFS perspective with a shortened field, everything that's on the line, even if it's not the best format right now, but all that consideration, 69 golfers, 13K Scotty, a bunch of options in the 6Ks that are pretty good golfers on paper, at least, including the very disrespected $6,800 Sung J M, who actually played much better last week and is still in the top 30, I believe, for the FedEx Cup playoffs. So yeah, give me your thoughts on all that and more. What do you got?
Yeah, so I mean, what it does is it gives us license to be even more contrarian than usual, because it's bringing the projections of the best players down towards the projections of the worst players. And we already would have a smaller gap than usual because this is such a strong field. And now the course is like also doing that. So the difference between Scotty's projection and the worst players projected in this field is like a stroke and a half smaller, maybe even more than that, than what we typically see when Scotty's in a field. So again, it just brings everyone together. I think that becomes really pronounced in the outright market, where now like the sweet spot to me is that, let's say 40 to 100 to 1 range. Like those guys have a much better chance of winning this week than they usually do. And that's not priced into the market fully. But on the DFS side, like I said, it just gives us license to be even more contrarian than usual. And this is another spot where, just like the 3M Open, it's not just this year that we saw a low 6 for 6 for the 3M Open. Like that's always been the case. And yeah, we don't have cuts here, so it's not like we're going to see that. But it just means more of the chalk is going to end up 40th, 50th than what we typically see. So license to be more contrarian, which is fun. Like that's the bright side of this course fit model and just this event as a whole. But the downside is it's just not that good of a golf course. And it's not a very fun viewing golf course either.
Yeah, it's all going to depend. And then it all depends on how it shakes out, because I think a lot of people will still go with the same guys that you see. And when we get to the tiers and going through it, I mean, you're going to see Aaron Rye is 8,300, Scotty, very affordable and easy to fit. So that's going to lead to more Scotty at the top. Guys like Xander, JT, Henley at 10K even. The fact that they put him, I would say best buy pricing when they're 90, Tommy Fleetwood is best buy pricing. He's 9,900, just below 10K. Your TV's 999, not 1,000. Russell Henley just stands out like a sore thumb to people of like, oh, how could you play that guy at 10K when Scotty's 3K more? And the difference between Hideki at 88 and then you go down to the bottom, it's like, I mean, you could pick up $2,000 quickly, if not, $3,000 across the board. So that Scotty situation will be the biggest one that's talked about, but it's easy to build Scotty, and we'll get to that in a second. Note says, just when you thought Im was done, he pulls you right back in. Certainly think about that. Is there any other no-cut event tips that you have? I mean, you talked about being able to be more contrarian because of the other factors. I think one thing about not every no-cut event, to me, I'll go first and let you take over, is not every no-cut event is the same. And what I mean by that is beyond the obvious, it's true, is that this is also a playoff event where you do know all of those golfers in the 6K range and below. And sometimes at no cuts, that's not the case. Here, you can make a case for all of those guys down below. So, I mean, not only can you get more contrarian, but to your point before, but you can also get a little bit more aggressive because there's enough of a pool down low of those guys that, like you said, the projection lines up. The fact that this is the type of course you're saying, like your point of 40 to 1 to 100 to 1 odds sweet spot. A lot of those golfers are priced in the 7K or low 7s, high 6s range. You could still get to a bunch of those guys and build a little bit differently for this type of event. What's your thoughts on no cut events and how you handle them?
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I'd add, I agree with all of it. The only other thing I'll add there is you can focus a little bit more too on guys who just make a ton of birdies. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those guys are the guys who can make a triple at any point in time. Cam Young, Jake Knapp, Wyndham Clark, guys like that. But you don't really care about that triple this week because if it happens, it's going to hurt his eventual, finishing position bonuses, but you don't have the missed cut to worry about when that happens. And they're going to make up for it by making some birdies in the meantime.
Yeah. And people always write guys off the minute they start out like 2 over or 3 over, like, oh, knew he was a bad play this week. Remember, they don't always bounce back, but if they do, there's going to be a lot more scoring to go with it because to get back to the good eventual finish, there had to be a lot of scoring to make that happen. I think about Xander that year at the Memorial. He shot 8 over in round one and everyone wrote him off. He came back and finished like 21st place and it didn't fully pay off, but to people that threw their lineups in the garbage on day one without actually doing so, because you can't, everyone would like to on the app, sometimes get rid of them. Man, it'd be like the cash out button of all time. Like, can you imagine people that wrote those off and then all the scoring that went into Xander coming back? I think there's a lot of people that would just pay to get it off the screen and DraftKings could just eliminate them from the pool or whatever. But that's a couple thoughts at least. Scooter called it. That was the year. Willie Z. And that was at like the hole was Sepp on, I think they were side by side at that point, but that was like either the first playoff hole or the last hole of the tournament where it was like just to prove that he can get into a playoff or prove that he can make it in a playoff. That wasn't the actual finale of the tournament. He was so fired up kicking things off that it was just like no chance he was going to lose after that. In my mind, you, it did look like a couple different shots after that. I was like, oh, he's definitely losing now. That was so bad. When it was up against the rocks and I thought he was going to hit it, I was like, that is not going to end well. It's tucked against it. It's just going to fall back into the water. And then the guy that did the broadcast type deal where the next day he came back and did the shot just to see what would have happened, like show it off. It went immediately back into the water. Yeah. So definitely think that's a good call.
He would have had to try that shot if Sepp hadn't hit it into the water right after,
yes.
Which would have been really interesting to see. Because like you said, I don't think that would have been possible.
That's the tricky part, but that's why these playoffs are so fun. And that's the one thing about this event. If it gets into a playoff, I know that year I had a ton of fun. It wasn't just the Willie Z outright. It was the course doesn't really, again, to me, at least, especially it doesn't matter as much, Alex, as when you get to a spot. Like once you're in that playoff and you got everything riding on the line, even if you didn't have the outrights or the bet or whatever it might be, it's fine once it's in a playoff because of the drama. To your point earlier on the playoffs, you don't worry about what the Stanley Cup final bonuses are for a hockey player. You don't worry about what the bonus is for an NFL team when they make it to the Super Bowl. All you give a shit about is who wins the Super Bowl, your fandom, different things that go into it, all these other factors, bets, gambling, whatever it might be. There's so many other angles, and none of it revolves around how much money someone is about to make the following contract season or how much money they get just because they made it with their bonuses, stuff like that. The incentives only come to play in week 17 and 18 when everyone thinks those matter. So that's all I got to say about that.
Well, speaking of the of playoffs, like if you had this design where the top, let's say 32 ended up in a match play bracket for the final, and the next 64 were in a match play bracket just for status and stuff. Like imagine the drama the second playoff week where it ends up with a 5-for-1 to see who gets into that championship bracket. They lock in their status and their exemption to signature events, things like that. Like, that'd be awesome to watch. But we don't get any of that with the current format. So it's just a huge missed opportunity the way they have the playoffs set up right now.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the biggest factors. I said to you pre-show too, like that is part of like some of the ideas that got thrown out there this week where the points don't matter and it's just like so-and-so move on. If you're not good enough to get in the top 50 of the top 70, probably shouldn't be moving on anyway. Yes, they could lose sponsors and the tournament could lose Scotty Scheffler if he somehow had a bad week, but he comes top 10%, 91% of the time. If he doesn't pull the trigger, that's kind of like a team failing in the first round, or maybe they still involve bye weeks. The top 10 are protected no matter what, just in case until week 2. But even then, week 2, you got to pull the trigger. You got to come through. And, I know it's not even close to the same because there's no sponsors or people that care, all these different factors. But in like the PGA Live final we just had, like there's 3 rounds. The top tons of the top players, Fantasin, one of the best in the world, had 15 entries going into the championship. He ended up getting 2 through to round 2 and 0 into the final. It's unfortunate, but it's the way it goes sometimes. I mean, previous year it was, I think it was Vasa or someone had 15 and got all of them through, and then the next year he got none of them through, or something like just playing the same type of lap. There's a lot of strategy to it. There's a lot that goes into it. So I guess that's kind of the play. But hey, I didn't talk to you about this pre-show. I will talk to you about a post-show because it goes live tomorrow anyway, but we're certainly excited for this. This is what I'm coining as the biggest announcement. I know in our history, a lot of people say this. A lot of people talk about it. We've had big announcements. The partnership with SaberSim. Rest in peace to our guy, Degenerate75. James, when we partnered with DGen75, that's a different style of partnership. He's called the 101 for a reason, true GOAT. There's nothing you can do to make up for that, but that was a merger underneath one brand where we were, it wasn't a costly thing for us. It was like it made perfect sense for his members, for our members, for him, and for us, and we love him, and it all made sense together. This is a huge spend. I'm curious in the comments, those watching live, and if you're not watching live, put it in the actual comments, but for the YouTube chat, we've already posted. There's clearly a golden ticket there. It is a golden SHIPIT. We're giving some bigger teasers away today because they're one day away. There's going to be golden SHIPITs. What do you think the grand prize is for this tournament? And throw your thoughts in there. Let us know what you think this is going to be, because it's going to be absolutely massive. We're certainly excited for this. It involves being a SHIPIT Nation member, but we're going to make it more than worth your while. If you guys haven't checked it out, go to shipitgames.com. Just put your email in, subscribe. It'll get you in so that you're the first to know. And then tomorrow, here back on this channel, myself and Hoopster, even from vacation, from the streets, he's coming back for this. We are going to be doing the SHIPIT Games live launch show at 1 p.m. Eastern sharp. So be there. Let us know if you have anything else in the chat. I'll pull it up as we go along. I'm going to go back here with my man, Alex. And Alex, let's get into this first tier here. Like I said earlier, with 10K and above, we've got Henley up to Scheffler. And Henley, I think I guess people probably don't want to play Xander or JT either, But what are your thoughts on this upper level, and how high with ownership do you think we see Scotty get this week? It is very easy to get him into these lineups for sure.
It's so easy to get him in lineups. I think we probably see 35-ish% in MME, and it wouldn't surprise me to see 40 in single entries. It wouldn't surprise me to see 50 in single entries, honestly, just because of how easy it is to get him. I mean, like, you can kind of call it a price decrease from where we've seen him in majors, but we don't have the $5,000 price range. So it's kind of like the same price, except to your point, all of the bottom guys are like actual good golfers now. So right. like if you're playing, Van Rooyen or Schmidt, Hughes, Potgieter, like, you're still playing somebody that you have some kind of expectation for, that they're going to play well, and they can't miss the cut. So it's so easy to get Scotty this week. I do, however, think that Schauffele will also get some ownership. I think the guys who are going to fall through the cracks, RJT, like you said, and I think Henley could end up really low owned, because I think most people kind of view Henley, Tommy, Fitzpatrick as kind of the same player. And Fitzpatrick is the hot commodity of the three right now. He's played more recently. He's playing really well. So I think he's going to soak up some ownership that Henley deserves. And like the point that you always make about pricing, it really does matter psychologically. Clicking somebody with a 9 for their name instead of a 10, it really does affect where people are clicking. So I think Henley could really slip through the cracks in single entries, which would make me very, very interested.
Now, I don't have it up right in front of me of the events that Henley played and had these results, but obviously just looking like the 10th, the 5th, the 2nd, the 10th, they're very similar results to Fitzpatrick's 8th, 4th, 4th, and 8th. Like, they're almost the same, but there's a $300 price gap there. The projections early, like Matt Fitzpatrick, better. He's got history here that's a little bit better, but Henley still had a 6th here 2 years ago. So, like, I mean, it is interesting when you see that. The psychological thing is for sure a real thing. I think people sometimes forget that. And if it ends up being that Fitzpatrick's just way higher owned, I always like paying up for probability, even if, and in the fact that even if it is only $300, well, there could be a massive ownership discount, and they're not that different. It's not like Henley plays all the scrub events or something like that. He's still playing in these top tier events. So to me, that's interesting. I always have this like fear in the back of my mind though, that, so it's a good example. Cam Young last week, we didn't spend time. We don't do recaps on this show, but I just say, like, obviously he gets the win. It's his first win, and it's a runaway. It's like Michael Kim. It was the Michael Kim 2.0 at the John Deere that year. It's like, we always knew this guy had this in his bag. Where was it? Well, there's just one tournament he gets hot and turns it on. With Cam Young, it was kind of the opposite. He turned it on a bunch. He just never closed the door. And you and I last time, we don't have to rehash it, but had a really good conversation around closers and people's perception of them and all this, that, and the other. Scotty's considered the ultimate closer because he always gets the job done after the 54-hole lead. Certainly is something to that, but it also just, if you're one of the best at what you do and your strokes gained are like that, the math is mathing. It's going in your favor as well, as long as your mentals can stay in check with your math. And he obviously does a really good job of that. But the interesting part here is I could just see where when Fleetwood wins, it is going to be like the Willie Z coming out party of something like that. Like you could see it happen here. And I know we're already skipping into the 9K range, but the obvious up top is you could play Scheffler in pretty much any lineup. Doesn't matter that there's not a 5K, because it's the fact that there's 69 golfers and a bunch of them in the 6K are real dudes or low sevens. But what's your thoughts on the 9K range? Because you hit on Fitzpatrick. I compared him to Henley. Fleetwood squeezed right in between. So I'm curious your thoughts on Fleetwood and then other guys within this range. A lot of talk, by the way, around Patrick Cantlay right now. People just trying to throw him off the Ryder Cup team. I don't know if you have thoughts there, but I'm just curious your thoughts on this 9K range and some of the add-ons.
I'll save Ryder Cup discussion for if we have some time at the end, because
sure.
I think the first point to make about Fitzpatrick and Henley is Henley has played once since the Travelers. It was at the Open Championship. So in that same time span, Fitzpatrick has 3 additional top 10s at the Rocket, at the Scottish, and at the Wyndham, in addition to his T4 at the Open Championship. So that's why I think Fitzpatrick is going to soak up a lot of that ownership, because we haven't seen Henley as much, but Henley is obviously in spectacular form as well. I don't see a ton of ownership throughout the rest of the 9Ks. Oberg has been like just not the same golfer this year. He's shown some flashes, but really just hasn't been the same guy as he was a year ago. And I think people are still treating him, at least like in the outright market, as the guy we think he can be and not the guy that he currently is. So I just haven't had a ton of interest there. But then Hovland was somebody who was very popular the last time he teed it up. I don't know if he'll be as popular now. And then, man, the Colin Morikawa discussion and the Cantlay discussion for the Ryder Cup is so incredibly interesting. I think Morikawa is the one that like leaves me with an even more sour taste in my mouth just from what he's been doing, because I can't stand everything he's done off the course. The caddy switches, the like significant and consistent, like just awful media comments, just like ruining his image. That doesn't scream a confident golfer to me. And we know how much golf is dependent on just confidence in your mental state. And Morikawa seems like somebody who's struggling more than just on the course in a way that I don't think he's going to figure it out quickly. I hope for his sake and for the American Ryder Cup team's sake that he does figure it out, because I think the team is much better with a strong Morikawa than without him. But right now, it's just been ugly.
Yeah, he's going through it for sure. And it's been, I mean, Hoop, you're filling in for our guy Hoops today, big shoes to fill, but he always says this about this guy. He's been saying it all season, and correct. I mean, once he got the 1/8 place recently, but it's been like he's never been needed. And someone from our community took it back and was like, it's actually like 5 months or 4 months. Like he just never, based on price, the board, DFS, betting, like he's never needed. There's nothing that's been required about him. He continuously gets thrown in here at this price tag. And I think from the Ryder Cup perspective, there's a lot of good commentary around it, but I think the clear path is that the Cantlay Xander thing is real. So it's like at the end of the day, they're still going to want to have that. If they're bringing guys like JT on, like if you go back and look at Cantlay's year as a whole, he's still done better than most. It's not like he's had a horrible year. It's just not up to par for what you'd want in majors. It's not up to, I get what everyone's going to come at me for, but my point is it's nothing like the Morikawa situation, which is a lot of other off-course stuff going on top of the on-course stuff. And honestly, on the course, Cantlay still had him covered. So I think that's kind of the key focus for me when it comes to that. I also wonder how Keegan's going to handle it now with guys late in the year popping up, because before Keegan actually was in the conversation for a playing captain. Now I think I don't know, it's too much other stuff going on. Unless he does something special, it's going to have to be like, I feel like he's going to have to just leave that alone and just coach the team now and go at it that way and say that he got the job done there, because there's just too much other storylines and whatnot going on. But you got to feel that it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a great Ryder Cup. I'm excited for that when it comes around. So Hovland, I was going to say one note on, just a mention, but I believe he's getting bet heavily this week. Like I know the number was up there. I think people were getting it at 33. So I get that. But to your point of a few different things, last time out, he was definitely clicked a bunch. He's been pretty good here. 2nd and 13th the last 2 years. The price, 9,300. The betting market, if it translates to DFS, the fact that it is guys like Ludwig, Morikawa, and Cantlay around him. He was in the 8K range last time out when he was getting clicked and did not really come through. But I still think that leads to people going to him some. So I think Fitzpatrick, Hovland are sort of where people land. And then Tommy Ladd always gets a little bit of love, and 9,900 still psychologically, like we talked about, the right type of price there. So leave it at that before we head into the 8K range. Talk about the 8K range from a couple perspectives. One, some of the guys you see there that you think people are going to go to and what stands out, guys that you like. But then also, this is still somewhat feasible just to take like a Scotty with an 8K guy, right? Like, and then you run it down from there. So I think that's another conversation to be had, is if you're not doing that, how do you play it differently, if you will? And if you are doing that, how do you sort of see playing it?
There are a lot of guys in this 8K range that are in form, starting all the way down at the bottom with Goddard, Ben Griffin, Aaron Rise in form. Harris English has been great. Then you get a mix of like really high upside guys who have been playing quite well for a lot of the season, but like Keegan have fallen off a little bit, just like Seb Straka, like Corey Connors. Hideki and Burns at the top of the 8Ks, I think could slip through the cracks a little bit. Burns, like another guy who was red hot and then kind of has fallen off a little bit since. So he could end up being really low owned. It's just like a very, very intriguing range where I don't know exactly which guys I'm going to prefer at the moment, because if anyone playing really well slips through the cracks and isn't going to be that high owned, okay, just play them, ride that hot hand. But there are also guys who, because there are so many in form in this range, there are other guys who we know have a ton of upside who could really slip through the cracks as well. So I have a feling I'm going to want to target someone in this range. I just have no idea who it's going to be at this point.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about different builds too. Like maybe you could go with something like, if your guy up top is Xander, then so be it. I'm just saying I'm not sure who it's going to be. But if you went with like a Xander and a couple 8K guys, that could get you different. Then with Scotty, it's mostly going to be Scotty and Rye. and then dropping down. I just think people love playing Aaron Rai. He's sitting there coming off another good week, 16th here last year, less than average price of 8,300. The projections love him early. So things like that is where I see people landing and starting things off. There's a ton of other guys around him, and the 8K range has all the, we shouted out our guy DGen75 earlier, all the or he could guys, a DGenism for you is there's a bunch of those. It's like this guy could never play good this week, or he could. And this guy's the chalk. We got to play him. Nobody else could outdo him, or they could. Like, there's so many guys around him that people are going to make statements on that it definitely could be. Like, Goddard could never play good after a win, a third, and a 10. Remember after the win? No way he's going to come out and do good the following week, third. Oh, but that's got to be it. Now that he's coming back stateside, things are going to shut down for him. Nope, 10th. Like, if you're playing good, you're playing good, and you can obviously relate to that. It works in a lot of different things. It's momentum. Things can fall off. Just ask our guy Colin Morikawa. We talked about earlier. Things could be going really good. There was a graphic when he won the Open that was super comparable to Tiger Woods at the time. And that was actually the compare. It was a legit sample size at that point of his stuff versus Tiger's stuff, similar in age, how it happened, all that. And people were like, whoa, like, hold up. I would never do this comparison because there's a long way to go. But this graphic is matching up, and it was at least a legitimate enough sample size, not a, just like this week versus this week, like Goddard versus Scotty recently. And everyone that's posting that knows that they're not dying on that hill. They're just saying it's pretty interesting that over this short term, he's still outdone him. So Goddard is there at 8K. Ben Griffin, what are we, a month or 6 weeks removed? He was the second best player in the world. They're saying, he's coming for everybody. Now what do we got? That stretch was a 8th, a win, a 2nd, a 10th, a 14th, 13th. Since then, miscut, but then 11th again last week. So can he come around? Cam Young coming off a win. Well, he got his win. The old one was he's going to party it up this week and not be there. The guy barely smiles. I would love to see a picture of him partying and see what that looks like. So there's all these little options. I'm not going to name them all. Keegan, playing captain, better show us something this week, captain to captain for his own rights. He's got to do it for himself. Hideki, I thought he won here last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Hideki won here last year. Just had to find it. And then Burns, like you said, is a guy that could always show up. So it's not about really, like you said, picking a guy. That's what we go the opposite on. Not me and you, but like in general, most shows, we're not just looking at the picks and plays. It's how can we construct these rosters differently? And you can get comfortable. You could go to a balanced build where the key is, this is my big takeaway, I guess, and then I'll flip back to you for any final thoughts before we go to the sevens. If you go Scotty, you're limited in this range. But if these guys are the ones that end up needed, if you need 2 or 3 of these guys and they end up popping up, it's going to be with whoever does best up top, where that's a scenario where Scotty could, like, this is the funny part. People always say Scotty at 13K in this field, he's basically got to win to pay off his value. No, there's so much that goes on around him that you have to account for. But vice versa to that, or alongside of it, is that Scotty could come 5th, but the 4 guys above him are all 8K guys, and right on his tail is Fitzpatrick and Hovland. And it's like Scotty actually crushed and did his job for his price. But it's, again, what happened on the board around him. That's how you beat the non-Scotty lineups, if you will, in that type of scenario, just talking through it. Any further thoughts on that roster construction as a whole with the 8Ks? Anything else there before moving to the sevens?
Well, if you go with Scotty, you're left with 7,400 for the last 5 spots. So you can build some pretty quality Scotty lineups with 2 8K guys, particularly if they're lower 8Ks. Like, I don't think you could do Scotty, Burns, Hideki very easily, but like Scotty, Griffin, Goddard still leaves 6.96 for your next 3. So that's actually a pretty comfortable build. No one will have any issue going to something like that. So I think it's the upper 8K combinations that would be a little bit tougher. Like if you tried Scotty, Burns, Hideki, now you're left with 64.3 for your next 3 guys. So that would be tough to do, but I think we will see a decent amount of Scotty plus 2 8Ks just because like this, like we said, this range is loaded. So people are going to love Scotty. They're going to love this range.
The one thing I'll say, and I agree 100% because that's the math on it, but if you do that, I just would tell people again, and a tool like SaberSim can help you look out for this. There's different tools out there, but just to show you is that this is the setup where if people go to Scotty with the most popular 8K guys, or even just, I'll be honest, even if people don't go to the most popular, say, well, I'm going to skip Rye then and go to a couple different guys in the 8Ks. That is a good start still, but where it lands you, I fear, and again, just keep an eye on your own portfolio when you're going through it, that then people will land on the same low 7K guys or upper sixes, and they think like, oh, I'm thinking outside the box. I pretty much skipped all the chalk in the 7Ks and I didn't play rye. It can be enough. It can work, but it also can put you in a spot where you are sort of boxing yourself in a little bit, even though you may have a unique lineup. Your construction's not actually outside of the box as you thought because of putting you in the same sort of zone of everybody else in the most popular plays where you don't get a ton of leverage. But yeah, like I say, a tool like SaberSim can set you up for success on that. I know you have different tools, but just to note it, that is a possibility. Let's go to this. Go ahead.
One of the things I talk about in my Discord with people is I like to take people off of the idea of differentiation in lineups, because differentiation in and of itself is not valuable, and instead try to think about separation potential. And so to your point, like if you start Scotty and then two chalky 8K guys, now you're counting on the cheaper, lowest upside players in your lineup to give you the separation. That doesn't work very well, right? Like you can't be counting on Emiliano Grillo in this event to give you separation from the field, to vault you up leaderboards. You want to find somebody with upside who can actually be that separator in your lineup.
Man, I love that stuff. And we got to do is we got to set up a mastermind episode, like a hybrid where you and I can just go back and forth like an hour and a half and just break down this type of stuff. But it goes with the name, SHIPIT Nation, differentiation, separation, SHIPIT Nation separation. That's what we're talking about right there. And this is going to be it starting tomorrow. So another reminder for everybody to get over to shipitgames.com, be here tomorrow at 1:00 to make sure that you're signed up for this. And all the promotions are out there, but you can go check the site right now. The early bird special is the best way to get in. Somebody asked it earlier what it comes with. When you do sign up for the NFL early bird package, you get SaberSim included. You get $549 plus. Talked about the mastermind stuff. We got the free mastermind course. That's the DFS mega course. You get free all access on all sports with SaberSim right up until NFL kicks off. You get the CFB content for the entire year, including the optimizer with SaberSim and the Discord, all the updates on the players. And then there is the mystery bonus coming tomorrow for all those with an early bird NFL package or an upgraded annual package. And we'll have more on that to come. So let's bring it back. Let's pop into the 7K range here. And what is sort of your thoughts on the 7K range this week? Because there's enough guys in there. Like there's actually a lot. Mm-hmm. But the difference is, I will say, is when you have, look, people are done with this guy, so I won't even use Grazerman, but so you've got Nick Taylor, Si Woo, Ryan Gerard, Minwoo Lee, Sam Stevens. People usually like to play. The projections do at least. Novak, Kevin Yu, Grillo, Nico. These are all guys people are very comfortable playing, I think, and there's not a ton of difference in lineup construction or what you just talked about with like separation versus differentiation, where I think people will be comfortable relying on some of these guys. So how are you handling the sevens, and what's your thoughts on the sevens versus the upper sixes? Because I always kind of throw them into the mix anyway.
Yeah, this is the range where I do see a lot of separation potential from guys, and it's ironically because there's not a lot of separation in their actual projections, and so wherever the chalk goes to, you can, like we talked about earlier, we have basically free license this week to just go to contrarian guys in this range. We're going to sacrifice very little from a projection standpoint, and we can go to, a lot of the time, higher upside plays. So for example, like Shane Lowry at $7,400, I think that price tag is going to attract people. I know he's not in the best form, but I think that price tag in and of itself is going to attract people. But you can go to a much higher volatility player like a Jake Knapp, potentially at lower ownership. And now when Knapp plays really well, if you get just another middling event from Lowry, you're getting that separation. So that's the kind of thing I'm going to be looking for throughout this price range. I think Wyndham Clark is another potentially really valuable guy to go to here, even though he's going to project a little bit worse than just about any of the popular options in this range. But when he plays well, he's at the top of the leaderboard. He makes a ton of birdies. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for this week.
And it goes back to what people asked about earlier. I know it seems, for those that live within the bubble with us and they've heard this stuff before, I get it, but not everybody has. Some people are sort of, questioning how they do it. Is there's some of these safety valve plays where it's based on a good projection, which is baked in off of a good betting board odds, where it's baked in off of official world golf rankings. It's like, those are literally the worst rankings. They're trying to revamp them all the time. So it's like one thing leads to another, and that's where people get confused. But when you have 4 rounds, yes, someone will probably WD or whatever happens. I get it. But it's like, we're thinking positively here, glass half full or more full. This is the point. is if you're thinking that way, it's like the safety valve doesn't really do a lot for you. You need the wild setup. You need the scoring. You need the finishing position. You need the risk reward because it'll be separation, to your point, not only in the ownership setup of your lineup and different maybe construction, whatever that is, but if they do have their ceiling outcome, they're just so far ahead of the rest of the pack because of where they are and what their upside is. That's what's going to separate you. So don't be afraid to take the risk on those guys. And then you can do whatever you want a little bit different around them as long as you're willing to make that, take that risk on some of those options. So I think that's a good call with guys like Shane Lowry, who really has nothing to show for anything. Yeah, let alone, but people will say at 7,400 at his, price point, at his this, that's kind of the setup that I'm looking at. So I think that's kind of a good point you made. People will definitely fall into that camp and take their safety valves there as opposed to in other spots. And it's like, you could definitely take your stands down low, pick your guys you feel safer with there, and then sprinkle some of these high upside, high risk, high reward options in this 7K range, which I think is a good spot to do it this week. I'm just trying to see if there's anybody else. Was there any other names specifically that stood out there? I know you mentioned Knapp a couple times. What about like Harry Hall, Bobby Mack, Wyndham Clark, Mav, some of those guys? Was there any other names that stood out to you in this range that might get overlooked?
Yeah, I think Spawn. I don't know what it is, but people just don't seem to want to play JJ Spawn, and I mean, he's a really good player. We've seen, like, you can't accidentally win a U.S. Open, but it's more than that. Like, he's a better player than a lot of the guys in this range, and I don't think people are going to want to play him because over the last month, like since his win, people just say like, oh, he got his big win. It's not going to happen again this year or something like that. Like, that sort of thought process doesn't actually have any merit to it, and he seems like he's going to be underowned for sure.
Yeah, I love this comment from BG Littlenecks. It's full of evergreen DFS advice. So good it could be paywalled. Thanks for the insights, Tambo and Alex. We appreciate you, man, and definitely that's what makes it fun when it's more organic. Like, I just text Alex, say, yo, here's the situation. You want to hop on? He's like down instantly, and I love that. So certainly appreciate it, Alex, and obviously love going through this stuff with you. On the JJ Spawn note, I actually go on a different rant here with you. I want to get your take on this. Did you see, I know it's like LAB putters, but it's lab. People say lab, like lab putter. Did you see this acquisition situation? Like the firm that just gobbled them up for $200 million instantly? What did you see that? And what was your take on it if you did? I'm always curious about the business side of golf as well, and just what your thoughts are.
I know very little about equipment for a guy as, not that I'm that accomplished, but like for someone who has played the level of golf that I've played, I know very little about equipment to the point where I don't even always know what clubs I'm playing. Like I'll get new clubs. Someone will be like, what model did you get? I'm like, I don't know, whichever ones they gave me, whichever ones I tested best with. I just do what they tell me. I just, I'll try anything, everything. And I don't care what they're called. I don't follow that stuff. So I did see it, but I don't know a lot about it. And I know like a little bit about the technology to these putters. I will say to the average golfer, it's probably a waste of money. You have to be very, very consistent with your putting stroke for the tech in a lot of the putting shafts, especially like the putters themselves, they can help anybody. The expensive putting shafts, you have to have a very good, consistent putting stroke for it to have any effect.
Yeah. I know people are probably laughing because they'll never get equipment talk out of me. I'm same as you. And when it comes to DFS, and you're like, yo, so-and-so's changed his driver. I'm like, man, he could have practiced with this new driver for the last 8 weeks, and now it's fully ready to go. And you didn't know that. You're never going to get that tidbit. You're going to get the one side of the story. Like, so-and-so's putting a driver in play. Everyone goes immediately to negative. Like, oh, this is not, or if it's a positive light, they put it automatic into the positive. Same thing, vice versa. Oh, Rory's going back to this driver. Now he's going to crush. What says it? That's saying he's struggling with what he currently has. He's thinking this. It's 50-50. You're never going to know. But to me, there's always a different angle to look at. But to me, with this deal, the business aspect of it was most important. And just the psychology aspect of it, of people seeing JJ Spawn, like they hit a lightning bolt, right? The lightning rod of a player wins major with tool device, putter in this format. And then there is other stuff baked in, but they already had sales. Now sales spike. The PE firm is like, we're going to automatically collect on all these sales, plus the future add-ons and the stack. I really think it was a good deal for both sides, but I think they're going to make out more than okay on this, just based on the back end numbers, back of the napkin numbers of the business deal. And that's something I like, always looking at different things with acquisitions. I know, shout out to our guy, Pat Mayo, just had the Fantasy National with Best Golf and the Rabbit Hole. Like there's all kinds of different things going on in the behind the scenes of it. And that one to me was quite interesting. It's just immediate. Like I posted the Shark Tank thing. It's like, so what are your sales? 111,000, but I got the slips here that say 450,000 are now buying this putter. And they're like, all right, sold for 200 million. Like, we'll just take it because they can figure out the numbers on it. But it's always wild. And with equipment, it's tough to say what's going to happen. But I remember people used to make fun of like those going to the tournaments and selling you the magic iron or the magic driver. It always hits the center of the face and like setting up the booths and all that. I can just imagine the hustle. You've probably been tried to get wooed on a bunch of those deals throughout your time playing where people are like, just try this out. And you'll take what you can for free, I'm sure. But if it's not going to fit your game, you're not going to run it for no reason.
Yeah. I was offered a full set of irons once for free. And then they were like, oh, by the way, but you'll have to pay for them in a month. I'm like, okay, so you're not giving me these for free. It's like, it's free. It's so strange. But yeah, they try a lot of different stuff.
Yeah. The other thing I'll say here on the 7K range just quick is I see like a little bit of congregation at the top, a little bit of congregation at the bottom. I'm not sure. Maybe Mav, because people always seem to like to play this guy, but I do wonder on like Wyndham, the aforementioned Knapp, who you talked about, Denny McCarthy, Jason Day, Brian Harmon, Chris Kirk off a good week. Like, where do these guys all show up with the Kitayama, Poston, Batias at the bottom, which, Akshay could literally, he WD'd. He could literally fall off the face of the earth for a month and people would still play him when he comes back, regardless of price. He's just a great dude to follow. He's happy-go-lucky. He's got a great game that's built for it. It's just, we haven't seen lately, not that much, right? The WD before that, 25th, 30th, 26th, 16th. So people will still play their guys here, but I do think there is that pocket in the middle that goes a little bit more overlooked. JJ Spawn to some of those other guys above him, like you said. So interesting to see how it all plays out. But let's round it out. Let's go to the 6K range. Final thoughts here on the sixes and just some of the guys that stand out. But clearly you can play a few of these guys together and put them with Scotty up top, or you can get different with a balanced build with a couple sixes. Lots of ways you can go. What are the 6Ks saying to you when you're first looking at it here?
My immediate thoughts are Nick Taylor, Ryan Gerard, Kevin Yu, Emiliano Grillo will probably look like the best in our numbers. The guy who I know is going to look pretty good in our numbers that I'm not quite sold on is Siwoo Kim. He has not played well in these last few events, and it's kind of been every part of his game. Like, he was bad in both ball striking metrics at the 3M. He was really bad with his irons at the Wyndham. His putting has been atrocious since the Memorial in the beginning of June. There's just not a whole lot to look at with Siwoo. Not just to think that he can play well this week, but especially not to think that he has a ceiling this week. So I think that's going to be a projection that I'm just not following of ours. But as we said earlier, like, you can take a chance on any of these guys. There's no one in this range that can't play well. There's no one in this range that can't play poorly. So it's just a numbers game. And I think the key for me is, like, I don't see anyone in this range that I think I want to count on as a separator in my lineup. So I might actually favor floor from these guys rather than ceiling. The one exception could be Nick Taylor. I do have an outright on Nick Taylor. We've got him at 1.8% to win and 90-1. So I like that a lot. And I just think, in addition to being one of the higher volatility guys down here, he, more so than anyone else in this range, I'm going to have confidence in on Sunday if he's in contention.
Yeah, he can really avoid a bogey too, like in the time of need. Like, that's one thing. I know I got the Canadian bias, but if you just think back to even the year that he won that RBC Canadian Open, the Waste Management Phoenix Open, like, there's bogeys to be found everywhere. But those courses maybe not as much as others. But at this course, I think that's kind of one thing we're counting on. And with a guy like him, he can come through. I think the Siwoo thing is certainly interesting. Like, the first argument, that's why I always say with content, you can go one way or the other. I'm with your way of thinking, but I wonder if what people are thinking is, I'm buying Colin Morikawa for $6,800. Their scorecards look identical for this season. Like, it's an 8th way back when with some miscuts, 11th, 34. Like, it's not much going on there. So people can see it from that perspective, but he's just so cheap on paper when you look at the betting odds and the rankings and all that stuff that people go there. You know where I'm going. Sung Jae, he's back. Look at last week, but he still blew it up in the 4th. Either way, 6,800, he's there. But I think there's something to be said for some of those guys lower. And this is for sure. It's pretty common, but it also just has to be pointed out. the upper 6Ks, yes, are always more popular, even though you don't see a lot of double-digit ownership. And I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But Nick Taylor, you said it, Siwoo, Ryan Gerard, Kevin Yu, like that's where people land here. Not only is there guys in there like the Michael Kims or the Novaks of the world that definitely could come through and have been playing just fine. And again, Novak was the best in the world, quote unquote, at one time to everybody. And they loved him. Why not now at 6,600? We know what his upside could be. I'll take some shots there. But it's the guys down below from that. Like if you look at Bridgman or Bud Cauley or whatever else you like down there, I mean, my boy Steven Yeager, people like EVR, like whatever it is you like down there, this is where you can take some shots because they're $200-$300 in the difference. And you can have a maxed out Scotty Scheffler lineup that's super chalky, not much separation. I'm with you that you're not always going to get a lot of separation down here. But if you like your build, taking Siwoo Kim down to Michael Kim for $100 less could be the difference of 10, 15 points in ownership and just completely different. And that would be a separation piece because most lineups that land on a cheaper option are going to have Siwoo. So if you had more Michael Kim and used him as sort of a stand, just using an example, again, not about the picks, it's just about the process. If you did that, you would have more lineups in contention and you'd have enough Michael Kim in that example that so many lineups are dying on Siwoo Kim in this example, whereas you've got enough Michael Kim to not just have him with Scotty. But those Scotty ones are probably majority of where you have him because prices, and I get that, but you'd be able to have different differentiation and separation in combo pack there because of your stand that you take or your can't think of the word right now, but your sort of, I was basically saying your stand that you take on that, your conviction. Sorry, it was on the tip of my tongue of what you're doing down there. And that could be with other guys. It's not about Michael Kim. I'm saying there's other options. If you go back to the well, people liked Bud Cauley. What was it, last week or the week before? And he missed the cut or the event before. And now he's down at this price. You could go back to him. He's 6,400. You could play Dietrich. You could play Fox. There's other guys that you can go to down. Nico last week wasn't even that bad. Ended up finishing 19th. I don't see nearly as many people landing on Nico as Griot and you right above him, Gerard right above them, and Siwoo right above Gerard. So anything else in the sixes you want to talk about or just overall with the event, roster construction, anything, bring it up now, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, two things. Number one, I think the Cauley call is quite good because Cauley call. I think it's a really good one because at the Wyndham, like he just had an issue with 3-foot putts out of nowhere. He's a very good putter. He lost 3.4 strokes per round putting at the Wyndham. And like I said, it came out of nowhere. Those were incredibly fast greens, especially down green. Getting off those greens should fix him automatically. And the other thing is like, okay, if you're having an issue with 4-foot putt, like that's one of the easier things to fix with a week of practice. So I like that one. I do want to talk about Sung Jae for a little bit because I've been listening to you and Pat talk about Sung Jae for weeks now. And I've got to join the conversation because I think I'm on Pat's side here.
You probably should be, but I'll let you go ahead. Yes.
The second worst approach estimate that we have this week is for Davis Riley and Joe Highsmith at negative 0.56 strokes gain approach. Sung Jae's at negative 0.88. It is by far the worst estimate of any player, any category this week. It's hard to overstate how bad his iron play has been. And the problem with that is, like we just saw this past week, Sung Jae, quote unquote, spiked with his irons to, what was it? 0.1 strokes gained per round. Yeah, 0.10 strokes gained per round. That was a spike for him at the Wyndham. So he spiked with his irons and got a T27 out of it. It's just so hard to contend when your ball striking is that bad. Like for a while there, I was actually still playing him. Like I played him at the Memorial. He got me a 16th place finish. That was strong. I'll take it. But as soon as you get off extremely difficult golf courses, you need to hit the ball close. You need to make birdies. And he just has so much trouble doing that because he doesn't have distance and he doesn't have iron play. Those are the two things that can actually lead to consistent birdie opportunities. He doesn't have either one. I don't know where you find a ceiling from him.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. It's just, it's my guy. I always stick with him. But I think like what we've talked about is that it's been bad. The idea here is like it's a bit baked in at 6,800, but maybe, it could be 62, 60. It could definitely be lower. It's just more of the problem is though, Alex, here's the thing. I've been waiting for the season to end, so I don't need to play this guy anymore. And it's like, if you go look, because of his Masters result, because of his good finishes this season, he was sitting 30th in the FedEx Cup playoffs last week. And I don't think last week hurt him. I didn't look at the most updated ones. I mean, that's the most hilarious thing too, by the way, on a side note, while I try and pull this up fast, is last week, everybody cares about like, oh, he's on the outside looking in. He's got to make the playoffs. What about this week? There's going to be everyone that's outside is, very close to the number. It's 70 down to the 50 highest points, not finishes this week. So the point would be is like, people look at it this week, it should matter the same, but it's the point of why last week it doesn't, because it doesn't, there's 20 guys outside that need to get in. There's 20 guys inside that need to stay in. It's all the same shit. So you can argue it either way. Like I talked about earlier, and mind you, Sungjae 29th is where he's sitting. So, the guy still makes his way up there. I don't see like Spieth is on the outside looking in. Siwoo, there's all these guys are, but I'm just saying of the names that were up there, it's a lot of what you would expect. And I don't know, maybe Spieth can make something happen here, but a lot of the guys just on the inside, Gotterup, Cantlay, Burns, Hovland, Sungjae, Berger, I think these guys will be pretty popular. Like, people want to play them anyway, and now that's just another added fuel to the fire type argument. But I don't have too much else. Sungjae, hard to defend at this point. The only defense is that there's only a couple weeks left after this, so we'll reassess for next season and see what happens.
I think that eventually he's going to figure out the irons, and there will be a point where like we want to be ahead of the curve on him, but I don't think it's right now. And I think the last thing I'll say here is early in the season, the irons were still really bad, but the driving was consistently really good. The driving has also fallen off a little bit late. And to me, that kind of says, okay, he's trying to figure out the iron swing. And like just a little bit of golf insight here, swinging irons and swinging your driver are actually quite different. And the harder you're working, the more change you're trying to make with your iron swing, the harder it is to stay consistent with your driver swing. So I think he might have yet another step backwards to take before he can start making 2 or 3 strides forward again.
Yeah, I got to take down the nobody cares work harder sign and send Sungjae a work smarter, not harder. He's working on the stuff, but it can be deterrent. It can be a deterrent to the other stuff to keep it in check. I know people, like to make fun of the Sungjae slim joke as well. When he started to slim down, I mean, that definitely can change your swing. I don't care what anybody says. We've seen it time and time again. It's like you have one body composition, one motion, one feeling. And I thought it was hilarious that, we didn't get we're at the end now, so who cares? We got a few minutes left. The Happy Gilmore 2, like how the movie just flipped on a dime to like all of a sudden it went to back surgeries that people were getting to like swing longer and stuff. Like it just was like a whole nother movie within a movie. I liked how Mayo put it. And it was like, yeah, that's, a thing though. It's like people do change their body composition and then their swing changes because of it. I don't know if he's still working through that or whatnot, but he definitely did slim down from when we first saw Sungjae come onto the tour, right?
Definitely.
Happy Gilmore 2 take before we go?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh my God.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's got to be bad. If the golf guy himself doesn't go and check it out, I mean, the original is such a classic. You might be better off to not watch, but the funny part is, and I keep shitting on this, is people say it's definitely watchable, as if people weren't going to watch it. Now you are the guy that hasn't watched it. It's like, man, it's watchable for sure. It is what you thought it was going to be. It was never going to be a masterpiece. I get that angle, but it just seemed like, a lot of attempts at a lot of things. So someone mentioned earlier, which is worse, Kawa's recent form or his acting skills? I mean, all different stuff. In that movie, it was like Xander, Ricky, other guys. Just it was bad for certain guys that others liked. I didn't. But yeah, let the people know where they can find you, man. Everything you've got going on. Xander deserves an Oscar. Absolutely not. That was whoever wrote the clip for him while making fun of him for him not ever deserving an Oscar is the person that actually deserves an Oscar. But go ahead, Alex. I won't cut you off again. Where can the people find you? What do you got going on?
Yeah, you can find me at FT and Fantasy. You can find me at AlexBooker1 on Twitter. Then you can figure out all the different stuff I've got going on. I think the other thing I'll shout out real quick is in my Discord, the Pick'em stuff, props has been awesome. I know it's something that you guys don't do a ton of, but it's something I love doing. And it's not just about like sharing picks. People can tail me, and they do if they'd like. But I'm also putting like the rationale behind every single pick that I make. So whether we're talking PGA, whether we're talking MLB, just hit another big 3-pick play last night. And then of course, NFL coming up, like NFL Pick'em is so much fun. And we're going to have a blast this season. So check out everything I got going on with my Discord as well. Like I said, you can find all of that through my Twitter at AlexBook1.
Yeah, you bet. Definitely check out Alex, guys. Awesome dude. Always willing to help out, doing a ton of good stuff. Super sharp. Always there in the satellite streets, right up to the top, playing in the megas when he wins those tickets. DFS side of things, definitely. But all that other stuff, like you said, you can apply to whatever you want to apply it towards. You can tail them and play the pick'ems. You can go into the prop stuff. You can use it for DFS. You can use it for outrights. You can use it for whatever you want to use it for. So check out everything Alex has going on. Check out ShipItGames.com, ShipIt Nation. If you are playing DFS this upcoming NFL season, there's not going to be a better place to do it because of the game. Somebody said, there was one guest in the chat said the grand prize equals full lifetime complete package membership. It would take a lot of lifetimes to equal that. So I can just say the prize, let's just say it this way. There's over 50,000 reasons to tune into the show tomorrow. Ship It Games is going to be announced in full tomorrow. Hoop, myself, right here on this channel. Make sure you're subscribed to the Ship It Nation YouTube. Hit the like. Get in the Discord if you're not in already. Join the nation. That's going to do it for this one, guys. For Alex, special guest, we appreciate you. For myself, ToeTagginTambo, let's ship it.